Right, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avaya's Healthy Aging Curriculum. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner, Ike Allen, and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of Avaya University. Avaya is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. So thank you so much for joining us. And our fellow teacher today, Dr. Ed Park, is here to talk with you about how to stay young and healthy. So thanks so much for being here with us, Dr. Park.
Thank you for having me, Andy.
My pleasure. I'm excited to dive into your work and this topic, and let's just get right started. So, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about aging?
Right, great question. I think most people uh, think that aging is something to do with their genes, or their lifestyle. I mean, that's kind of what most people think, but in fact, it really has to do with mileage. If you give me a car off the lot, I'll take that over any car. I don't care what model that has 200,000 miles on it. So I think those are the two biggest. They think they're responsible and it's faded in their genes, and both those things are incredibly untrue.
Can you go a little deeper into the gene one? Because obviously, yes, that tends to be something that a lot of people bring up when they have any number of things come up in their life, and so why is that not true?
Well, I'll belabor, we'll just ride the car analogy. If you got a lemon and it came out of the factory with bad parts, that's a different story. But by and large, the majority of us share like 99% of the genes. And for like 99% of them, we have one good copy from mom and one good copy from dad. And so we go through life with good genes. There are certain exceptions that prove the rule, like sickle cell or Huntington's disease. By and large, we are both equipped out of the factory with good parts. And what happens in cells, and then those cells are stem cells that replicate themselves, we accrue little damages, little dings. And so they're like bad parts in a car. So those two genes, one of them gets knocked out, we start to express disease in different ways. But by and large, we're all pretty genetically perfect when we're born, and it's just the process of living and acquiring damage, both genetically and also what they call epigenetically, which is the software. That is the problem.
So what are some examples of damage? Like, how do we damage ourselves? I can think of many, but what are you focus on in your work?
Well, I mean, it's an ongoing process. Just like, you drive your car 200,000 miles, you're going to need to change the tires, the brakes. Likewise, our bodies are not designed to live that long. If you look at the fossil record, we don't know really how old those young people were, but because it's not like tree rings, but we don't think people live past 30 or 40 very often for whatever reason. Skin problems, very common in people of European descent. They have actinic keratoses. Uh, they have just minor glitches in their cells causing basal cell cancer, squamous cell cancer, because the skin is a huge organ exposed to X-rays, gamma rays. You've got genetic mutation happening at a faster rate. That's one example, but every organ goes through aging and damage, and largely as a result of what I believe is a telomere sort of attrition. So as your stem cells copy, the telomeres shorten, and if they get critically short, they cause chromosome mutation. And so that process is going on throughout our bodies, throughout our lives.
So could you go a little deeper? I know that you've written books about the telomere conversation. So first of all, for people who don't know, what is a telomere, and how ultimately do they influence aging and our overall health?
Right. Okay. So there's two books I've written. This one was commissioned by Hay House, and you could see the candles getting longer here, allegedly. So this is called The Telomere Miracle, and this is a great book for people who want to learn the science and also what they can do for free. So I know Suzanne Summers just mentioned me in her most recent book. Again, she had me contribute a couple of paragraphs. Basically, this explains everything about telomeres. And the nice thing about this book is it tells you how our six cylinders, again with that car analogy, can help. Those are breathing, mindset, sleep, supplements, exercise, these kind of things people can understand at a deeper level, at a mechanical level, and then hack, if you will. And the first book I wrote was kind of more autobiographical. It's when I started giving telomerase activators to people. I've been taking it for 12 years. And it explains really the basic premise, which I think in about 20 years will be orthodoxy, because all the science is suggesting that, shorter telomeres are associated with higher rates of cancer, faster aging. And so that seems to be the mechanism that's driving all this disease and dysfunction.
So how do we in our lifestyles influence the length of our telomeres?
Well, when I say lifestyle is not important, I don't want to overstate that point. I mean, certainly if you're smoking a ton, drinking a ton, not sleeping, over-exercising or under-exercising, massively obese, even too frail, these are all bad things. So you're going to age faster, no question. Um, so I think, if you want to optimize, the best thing to do would be to learn what good sleep is like, what good exercise is like, what good thoughts are like. And so there are many ways. We all know people who are stressed. I mean, you see presidents of the United States before and after office. You see people with spouses or parents undergoing chronic illness. Very stressful. So certainly stress accelerates aging. So lifestyle is important. A lot of what we're here to do is to manage the stress and become stronger and better, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. So in my book, The Telomere Miracle, I talk about ways that people can learn to better sleep, better, breathe, very important. So yeah, I mean, lifestyle is important, but I think the point I'm trying to bring home is that you see wonderful people who are optimized and doing the best they can, and they're still getting older at a rate of about a year, a year per year. So I go to these anti-aging conferences and I see people touting this or that, and I'm like, you know, you really look a year older. I'm sorry, but as for me, for the last 12 years, people who know me from 12 years ago, they say, well, you don't look any older. I mean, I used to have gray hair. I used to have reading glasses, and that was 10 years ago. So I think I'm kind of staying at the same level.
So what do you attribute that to you, like to in your life? Like what has caused that anti-aging or staying the same level?
I think it's just strictly an extract from a longevity herb called astragalus. So
Mm.
I've been taking that for 12 years. And I think I got a picture around here I can show you. Ooh, I'll find it in a second. I was really obese when I was younger, in my 30s. My son asked me, was the residency stressful? And yeah, we used to do 36-hour calls. Uh, I must have gotten so obese and so stressed. I was about 210,
Mm.
really unhealthy. And I'll find it here.
Take your
But
time.
I think it just caused extinction of all my fat cells in my visceral fat. So 3 months after starting this TA65, which is the cycloestrogenol single molecule telomerase activator, I just came to work. I was like 15 pounds lighter with no diet or exercise. So this is me 20 years ago.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, big
really, but
change.
that was me in my 20s because of the residency and the stress of working. And so basically, I came to find through treating other people that some people do get a radical weight loss. It's interesting. So everything is, when it's out of balance, we get sick, and a form of illness slash aging is obesity. So part of the deal of getting older is that you get senescent, dysfunctional visceral fat cells, and it kind of begets more obesity and inflammation and dysfunction.
Mm. So, like, you mentioned the astragalus. Would you consider that to be, I mean, right, everyone wants some kind of a magic pill or something that's gonna get them to not age. And
Yeah.
while I think there's certain truth in that, I think we're all gonna die, obviously, eventually. But is that your magic pill? Or do you think that exists?
I mean, I think it's one of the tools. I like to think there's three processes going on. One is telomerase maintenance or telomere maintenance. So telomeres, to go back to your question, they're the ends of the chromosome. So every time a cell divides, they shorten mechanically. You can't copy to the very end. So I think maintaining that has kept the gray hair away. But it's a common report I get from people taking the magic pill that their beards or their hair is getting darker. And I hear people in their sixth, seventh, eighth decades, they're still saying, well, I like the fact that my hair is getting darker. Do they have a full head of black hair like me at 52? No, probably not. But I think the other two aspects are destruction, which is an area of aging research that's coming out, certain targeted molecules and processes that can destroy or at least leverage the inherent suicidal nature of cells to clear out senescent cells. And so there's maintenance, there's destruction, and then there's creation. So the thing that we have now is exosomes, which are little spheres, nanoparticle sized, smaller than viruses, and they have messenger RNA, proteins, and they can actually signal regeneration and growth. So we have the growth, the maintenance, and the destruction. Those are the three things that work. So if we studies in animals and maybe some small clinical studies are showing we can do this with people too.
Hmm. So you mentioned, I think it was senescent cells. Is that what you said? So
Yeah,
could you say what that means?
sure. Let me pop this back in the fridge, hang it, so a
Okay.
freezer. So senescence just means oldness or being old. So what we know is that when cells are old, they behave kind of nasty. They put out nasty signals. They don't play well with others. They don't listen to others, and they can put out inflammatory signals mainly. So interestingly, there are drugs which can target senescent cells. One of them is like, for example, FOXO4, DRI. It was tested a couple of years ago at the Buck Institute, and they gave it to mice. It dislodged this normal protein you make to keep cells old and dysfunctional. So it's like going through a company and doing a reduction in force, and all the people over 65 who are alcoholic and who yell at the young people or whatever in the office. It's kind of like that. So that's a really exciting aspect because the endpoints clinically are the mice get sharper, faster, they look sexier, and they have darker coats, and their kidney function gets better. So I think that's going to be a really interesting tool.
Hmm. So what about like no cost approaches for people who don't necessarily want to buy anything or take anything or whatever? I know you mentioned, right, sleep, exercise, those kinds of things. Like what else could you say about, anti-aging or aging more slowly without, spending money?
Yeah, absolutely. I would really pick up this book. I mean, here we're talking about endocannabinoids. Um,
Mm,
I really, when I do anything, I come at it from a beginner mindset. Even though I have some education, I'm a medical doctor, public health degree, I learned so much coming at it from a beginner mindset, what the Buddhists call beginner mindset. And it's surprising how many misconceptions or just lack of understanding people have over a simple thing like sleep architecture, for example. It's something that we all do. People don't know that there's a structure. It's cyclical. You wake up every 90 minutes. You have your deep sleep and repair early, and you have your REM sleep and your active dreaming later. They really don't even understand that basic function. We spend, a third to a half of our lives in sleep. So that's number one. Breathing too. When people get anxious, they breathe tight. They breathe from their neck like here. They can get neck pain. And the fact that you're not bringing oxygen and reducing CO2 in your body and getting acidic, it causes more tension. So these are all entryways to kind of hack your endocannabinoid system. How to calm yourself down by getting rid of anxious thoughts, by being present, by being grateful. These are all just basic life skills. It's what they should teach to little kids. I mean, I
mhm.
wish in grade school they taught kids, you know, napping and how to eat well and how not to overeat and how to get control of their emotions and be happy. I mean, that would be the best. So this is really like a handbook that I would give to all kids and adults and all people to learn how these systems work and how to optimize them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, I know near the beginning again, like no cost approaches, right? Like sleep and exercise and things like that. Is there anything more you can say around, like thought? You mentioned thought, right? Thoughts. Obviously, this is
Mhm.
becoming a more mainstream thing, I think, for people to recognize how much their thoughts influence their physical health and the aging process. Is there any more you could say about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in this, we live in a kind of a secular world now, so people talk about the mind body connection. But, there was a Christian philosopher who said, you're not a soul in a body, you're not a body in a, or whatever it is. I forget, sorry, Kierkegaard. But you're basically a soul in a body, right? But there is no mind body separation. Like to imply that mind is different from body is not to understand physiology. So again, that was a problem. Descartes said, well, there's mind and there's body. No, any person, doesn't matter how wonderful and calm they are, if you sleep deprive them for 3 days, they're going to become psychotic. I don't care
Right.
if you're the,
Yeah.
Thich Nhat Hanh or Dalai Lama, you're going to be
Mhm.
nuts. So I think one of the hacks that I provide in the book is like an intentional prayer before you go to sleep. It's so important what you incubate right before you go to sleep. If the last thing you do before you go to sleep is think, how am I going to pay my bills? And oh my God, CNN said the world is going to end. Then
Yeah.
what's going to show up in your learning program during REM sleep? So I devised like a list of 10 things, top 10 list to be things to be grateful for. And I start with the really crappy stuff. And so it's kind of like a judo trick. Maybe some people who are critical of New Age spiritualism think it's like a shortcut. But let's face it, I mean, we're all stuck with ourselves 24/7. So the key is how can you be okay with yourself and your life experience without enhancing all the negativity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's totally in alignment with a lot of what we do at Avaya is a lot related to, right, how our thoughts and our minds influence our physical experience here, and then of course absolutely the spirituality end of things. So yeah, the no separation. So I love it.
Yeah.
So here's a question, and I'm asking everyone this: what does healthy aging mean to you?
That's a great question. I would say number one, and I deal with this a lot, is living without pain. They say that pain will not be ignored. And so many of my patients have pain, whether it be related to musculoskeletal things or other processes. So living without pain is number one. Number two, living without medications. I have a short list of patients, and it's funny, they kind of come to me and they either were on or were never on medication. And we're talking people in their 70s or 80s. And to do that means you haven't gotten any major hormonal disorders, you haven't gotten any high blood pressure, which is a very normal thing. It's very hard to have elasticity in your arteries when you're 80. But I have patients like that. So being off meds is important because, as we know, meds are often symptom mitigating, but they don't fix the cells or fix the processes. And then thirdly, being able to just enjoy the activities of daily living, taking walks. There's a gentleman who just came out from your neck yesterday. He used to love taking walks with his wife. He can't because of his knees. So he took an exosome shot in his knees, and we hope that he can restore that simple pleasure. So it's no pain, no meds, and enjoying the simple pleasures. To me, that's healthy aging.
I love it. What about, let's talk a little bit more about exosomes. You mentioned the injection, like how do you mentioned it a little while back, but can you say anything more about that as it relates to healthy aging and things like, unhealthy knees or inflammatory knees or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge topic. I mean, exosomes have only been around really in the mainstream of science for about 8 years and commercially available for around 2 years. I've been practicing for almost a year now with them, and my experience clinically is growing exponentially. This is a brochure from one of the companies that makes them.
Mm.
Um, Basically, exosomes, it turns out, are the way that cells communicate, and specifically, we have these master stem cells. They're called mesenchymal stem cells. And I wrote about my first book. We knew that they could go to places and differentiate. So if you need new liver cells or if you need new intestinal cells or bone or muscle, they'll kind of go there and differentiate and become what you need. But it turns out that even without engrafting and differentiating, they send out these signals. And the signals come in the form of 100 nanometer spheres with very specific proteins and mRNA. So what they do is they reprogram other cells and other stem cells, importantly, so they can kind of refurb. So the process of regeneration is very robust when you're young. When you're older, the quality of both the stem cells signal or song that they're singing and the response of the cells is blunted. So a lot of what we do as an organism is our cells stop singing the same wonderful music and they stop dancing together. So when we take the exosomes from a newborn placenta and we put them into our bodies, instead of getting a 52-year-old songs, we're getting a brand new, hot off the chart, song, and the cells do respond.
Awesome. Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that little
Yeah.
extra information there. So do you have any other like stories, I guess, of, you mentioned this gentleman, and do you have any stories of other people who have had like great success in anti-aging, whatever that looks like for them, whether it's they have hurt joints or their skin or, reversing disease, like all these kinds of things? Anything you could share?
Yeah, I'm really blessed to be able to share a lot of those. If people want to learn, they should email me at drpark at rechargebiomedical.com. That's DRPARK at rechargebiomedical.com. To date, I have 27 blogs about patients, amazing stories, people with chronic nerve pain in their jaw, people with face blindness, um, people with back pain, knee pain. I have an 80-year-old guy that's running 120 miles in 6 days. Uh, people with multiple injections, it's improving their reading. Even last week, while my son was on break, I gave him a shot, and he said he hadn't slept that well in months. He has a little bit of anxiety. He's kind of trying to be high achieving, and it really calmed him down. He's only 20, so it really helped to ground him. So what I think the meta lesson is that inflammation is kind of like when it's in the brain, it expresses itself as anxiety, depression, or other things, and that it's kind of like an echo chamber. When you're inflamed and worried, you create more autoimmunity, you create more senescence, more inflammation. So the whole process is trying to create that harmony. That's why a lot of people are hacking that with CBD, the non-psychogenic sort of extract from marijuana. But as I explained in my book, the CBD is something you can make by just breathing deeply, or giving someone a hug, or listening to beautiful music. Your whole system creates these endocannabinoids, so you get high on life. And
Mm-hmm.
people that smoke it, they're just not making it from whatever reason. So there are many entries into the system to make yourself more balanced. I mean, good, healthy aging we discussed, but healthy just day-to-day living is just being able to be present and to be happy with what's going on. It's not all, wonderful, we know,
Right.
but being able to roll with it and not lose your equilibrium and get spiraling out of control. That's what good health is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So, if people are looking to learn more about you, I know you have your books, and we're going to have links, everybody, to Dr. Park's books, as well as some other things. Do you have anything else to share about the different products that you have that people could check out?
Yeah. Well, I was taking the TA65, which is quite expensive. There are a lot of A-list celebrities who take it on the sly, and they don't tell people, and then they just say, "Oh, I have great genes," or "I practice yoga," or whatever.
Right.
But 5 years ago, I came up with my own brand, which is less than half the price, and we believe it's the same molecule. So that's called Recharge, and they can go to www.lokahi.guru. And lokahi is a Hawaiian word. It just means being in harmony with others, with in everything in general. So again, I think that for my patients who are addicted to this drug, what they say is when they stop, they don't sleep as well. They don't recover from exercise as well. So, I have a very good friend of mine who didn't want to be addicted to it. And every time she stopped, she got really depressed. Well, it's not like I caused her depression by not giving her the drug. It's just like her thoughts and her lifestyle are making her depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So she opted to not be addicted to the antidepressant. It's not an antidepressant at all. It's not psychotropic at all. It just allows you to roll with it a little better. So, there's ways to get there without a supplemental pill or without exercising. But, I think we all encounter in life that, sometimes we're not present with good thoughts, and it can certainly make things worse if the self-talk you have, or the habits you have, are negative.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll have, again, links below, so everybody can just click right through and
Great.
head over and check out more about your work. Are there any last insights or anything else you feel like we've left out? I think we've covered lots of different topics as it relates to healthy aging, but is there anything else?
No, I just want to thank you for what you're doing, providing a forum for different voices. I think the big thing is that we're all kind of approaching the truth and from different angles, and I think that people should be optimistic. I always am amazed at people who they've gone through incredible tragedy, and even they're battling chronic illness. And I ask them, and they say, "Well, I just want to be here. It's such a wonderful place to be." And I don't always resonate with that thought. I'm always thinking, well, it could be better. But I think that there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. If you don't necessarily have to rely on the New York Times, or the National Health Institute, or NIH. If you're just looking inward and understanding better the way your body systems work, then just wait a couple of years, because there'll be some real breakthroughs. There will be magic pills. I believe that the telomeres activation and the exosome injections are 2 out of 3. I think the senolytics are also quite interesting. So
Mm.
when we look back, and hopefully we'll all be here in 20, 30 years doing another Avaya interview, and we'll say, yeah, you were right. We were just right on the verge. So all those people that are kind of giving up and saying, oh, life is too painful or too difficult. You know, I had a patient who was 92, I think. And up until 90, 91, he was, you know, doing push-ups, handstands, dancing. His brain was sharp. And we all want to live to whatever the number, 90, 100, whatever it is in the future, at a high quality of life. And that's the goal, you know. I certainly empathize with people who are in pain and chronically ill and not getting better. And I recognize that my profession has not been the best in providing hope. They provide remedies for symptoms. But I think we're pretty close. I mean, I'm not going to say like all these people who are gurus, they kind of say, well, in 20 years, we're going to have intelligent computers that program themselves, and we'll all upload ourselves to the cloud, or we will have effective lifespans of 1,000 years. I mean, I'm very skeptical of that. When everyone says to me, whenever I hear, oh, in 20 years, my mind goes, oh, here it comes.
Right.
Because, if you go back in the literature to the 90s and 80s and 70s and 60s and 50s, there's always people saying, well, in 20 years. And it's like, oh, in 20 years, the polar ice caps will melt. Or in 20 years, computer will have flying cars. I mean, that's just, to me,
Right.
that's the tell of a circus barker to me. So, but I do think we're going to have meaningful improvements available at lower costs. But
Mm.
hey, to answer your question, just pick up my book.
Excellent.
And you
Great.
can learn
Awesome.
learn how it really works. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time
My
and for
pleasure.
doing this with us, and everyone watching. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself, for tuning in and being open to learning and expanding on your healthy aging journey. And we will see you all very soon. Thanks. Take care.